in every position, at every job, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. That's just the way life is. And being able to have the ability to speak with your leadership and to express ideas or express maybe new ways of doing things that could make the process better, that is a sign of a good workplace culture. Having those open lines and where you can always in a respectful manner and always in a way that reflects well on yourself. Anytime you can go and visit with your leadership and tell them, hey, I'm struggling in this area, or I could really use help, or I'm not doing great. And if that's welcomed, that is actually the sign of a great, great workplace culture. And you yourself feel like you're valued and you are heard when that door remains open.
There are opportunities for our work and careers everywhere, if you know where to look. That's easier said than done, especially in our fast-paced and constantly changing world. Marianne Fairmouth is talking to experts, employers, and job seekers to bring you insight and understanding about what's possible. This is Career Can Do, where we're navigating the new work world.
Welcome to the Career Can Do podcast, a top global podcast dedicated to helping you navigate the new work world and beyond. My name is Marianne Fairmouth, and I'll be your host for this episode. And today I'm just delighted to have a gentleman on our show that happens to be the Associate Director of the Graduate Career Management Curriculum at Baylor University's Career Center in Waco, Texas. With close to 2 decades of leadership experience, Amine is really making a difference to the students at Baylor to develop different areas in their future workforce area to succeed through coaching and goal setting and professional development. He manages multiple projects at Baylor, but I had the pleasure of hearing him speak at a conference in Santa Fe, and his information was so right on that I wanted to have him on the show today because sitting on my side of the desk, if more of my candidates were coached with people like Amine, I think these candidates would be much more placeable. So after that incredibly long introduction, help me introduce Amine Qourzal. Amine, say hello to everybody.
Thank you so much, Marianne. Thank you for that great introduction. Just a pleasure to be with you on your podcast. Thank you for having me and really looking forward to the conversation.
Okay, well, it's the pleasure's all mine. When I sat in that audience, and I heard what you were saying to all those CEOs and vice presidents, I was smiling from ear to ear because I think if more of our candidates that we're trying to place had training and had information from someone like you, I think they would have a stronger chance of getting hired much more quickly. So, we talked about so many things in the Blue Room. We talked a lot about workplace culture. And you mentioned something that, oh my goodness, really, again, made me smile in such a happy way. And you said that it's more important, or the job seekers, an important aspect for them to consider is the value of culture over compensation. I couldn't agree with you more, but tell us what you mean by that.
Well, Marianne, it's just really interesting. This next generation of job seekers who are graduating from college and going on to their first job, they are really looking for someplace that will offer them a strong culture. And I'm not talking just about ping pong tables and free coffee and great snacks, but I'm talking about a place where they really feel a belonging and where they really feel like they are aligned with the values of the organization. And they're looking for a place to thrive. And what they are consistently reporting back to folks like you and me is that the satisfaction really comes, the job satisfaction really comes more from the culture than it does from the paycheck that they're getting. And oftentimes I'll hear them say, the salary is what got me to apply, but it was the culture that got me to stay. And because of that, I'm a firm believer that workplace culture is more important than compensation, simply because it gives that sense of belonging where employees and job seekers can thrive, where they're more motivated, and ultimately it helps the bottom line of the business. Compensation is important, don't get me wrong, My car doesn't run on good workplace culture. My bills don't get paid on good workplace culture. But my happiness and the success that I can bring to an organization is absolutely tied to having a strong culture where I feel valued, where I feel appreciated, and where I feel like I'm really making a difference.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that, we talked about this a little bit. The right workplace culture does affect productivity, does affect the bottom line. Because when you're in a work environment where you feel valued, you feel appreciated, you feel like you can be heard, you're going to work
Hmm.
harder, I think. All right. At least people call me
Right.
and they tell me what they're not getting at their workplace and why they want me to find them a new job. And it's usually
Yes.
because those things are not they're not included in the culture. Okay. And
Right.
I don't like to departmentalize different generational segments, but I think that the newer generations, correct me if I'm wrong, culture and feeling valued is even more important than maybe it did in my generation. My generation,
Yeah.
my dad would say, you go to work, you work hard, and if you work hard enough, then they'll maybe appreciate you and maybe you'll get promoted. So it's about prove yourself first and then worry about the
Exactly.
culture. Well, that's not the way it is now. You agree?
No, no, I completely agree, Mary Ann. And people have options now when it comes to where to go to work. And the average tenure of that first job placement after college is much less than what it used to be back in the day. Now we're seeing candidates stay on average in their first job anywhere between 2, 3, and 4 years, not very long at all before they move to the next place. And we're shifting away more and more from those type of jobs where you started in the mailroom and you worked your way up, and then after 50 years you got the gold watch at retirement, and your career was spent at one place. That's just not the case anymore. But I think the biggest driver in that is culture. And when you have that strong workplace culture, retention goes up, productivity goes up, and employees feel like this is someplace they can make a career out of and stay a lot longer. Because it costs organizations a lot of money to have to retrain and hire and onboard and have requisitions and all of that. Having rock star employees who believe in the culture, who transmit that culture to others, and stay engaged at work, that's really the rock star employee that you're looking for. And the way to cultivate that is by having that strong culture in your workplace.
How does an employee really assess the culture before accepting it off? I mean, in your opinion, how do they know if it's this company even has the culture they're looking for? How do they know? Where do they
Mm.
find that out before the interview? What do you suggest they do?
It's so important, Marianne, for candidates to do their homework and not just do their homework in terms of figuring out what the salaries are and what the upward mobility is. Those are very important things that should be included in the research. But I encourage all of my students and any job seeker to research the culture. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. Of course, places like Glassdoor and Google can provide some great insights into what it's like to work somewhere. And so I encourage folks to check out glassdoor.com and any online resource that they can find. But the best way to assess and the best way to determine what the culture is like somewhere is to make a friend at that company, or to reach out to alumni from your school if you have an alumni connection there, and just set up a 15-minute Zoom call or a coffee, and just ask those questions. Hey, Marianne, I'm really interested in coming to work at Company X, and I just want you to be honest with me. Are you happy with the culture? Is there a good culture where you work, or is there something that you wish you would change? And just leave it open ended to kind of get that insight, and people will open up to you. They're going to tell you what they love and what they don't like. And of course, you can nuance that as you're receiving the information, but be on the lookout for red flags. Like, is there bad communication? Is gossip kind of running rampant? Is the leadership toxic? Is there tension in the office? Or if there's not, then you're probably onto a place that has a good workplace culture, and having a connection that can share that with you openly will really give you great insight. So that's what I encourage folks to do, is just do your homework and ask those questions in a safe space with somebody that you can ask.
Oh, I think that's a great idea. And I think doing your homework is critical. In fact, I mean, I had a candidate go on an interview not long ago, and he went and researched the company and the products that they sold and who they sold them to. And his experience was a little bit off, but because his client base was similar, he went into my client and said, I haven't sold exactly what you have here, but let me tell you what I've done. And let me tell you who I know that would buy what you're
Mm,
selling. And that got his attention right away. But the main message here is he did his homework.
exactly,
I think more and
exactly.
more, going in and talking intelligently, having knowledge also shows the prospective employer that you're going to go the extra mile. You're going to check into things. You're not going to just, and I think that says a lot.
It does.
Toxic environments, unfortunately, these days are several. All right. There's quite a few of them. But I mean, in your opinion, what do you think some of the signs are of a toxic work culture? What do you think people should be on the lookout for and stay away from?
Sure. Well, I'll start off by saying that no place is perfect and every organization has room for improvement. I think if there was an organization that didn't have room for improvement, we'd probably all be working there because it would be without its any issues. But I don't think that place exists quite yet. So some things to look for, just some red flags that I kind of would point to where it may be a difficult work environment or a difficult work culture is look at the leadership. How does the leadership treat its employees? Do they feel like they're being manipulated or bullied? Is there a general lack of empathy that just creates a very harmful environment? Are there lack of clear policies? Are the rules just kind of wishy-washy and inconsistently applied? Do you see high turnover? Is it a revolving door at this company where people are just leaving left and right? There could be many reasons for why people are leaving. It may not be directly tied, but more often than not, when we see a revolving door, there's usually quite a bit of dissatisfaction and maybe points to an unhealthy workplace. Another big red flag is if you talk to somebody there and they say, my workplace struggles carry over into my private life, carry over when I go home, and I'm not a good spouse, or I'm not a good dad or mom to my kids because I get angry quickly or I let out my frustration from work. That is often a sign that workplace culture is carrying over into the personal life and the private life. And that's a pretty big red flag when you can't leave it at the office, but you actually bring it home. So if it's affecting your personal life or you get the feeling like the person you're talking to, their personal life has been affected, it's probably a red flag, a big sign that culture may not be one that you want to get involved with.
Those points are very, very good. And I think that, you're right. A lot of toxic qualities in a work environment can contribute to somebody's well-being. And if you're really unhappy and there's a high degree of stress, there's also an impact on your immune system. And that can cause you to get sick more often. But I also think sometimes if you're having a struggle at work, and I tell candidates this, I would sit down and think about talking to your supervisor and saying, look, I really appreciate the opportunity. Always be grateful. Always start with gratitude. I
Absolutely.
don't think you can go wrong with that. But I want to know what I could do to become a better employee. What could I do to really make a bigger contribution here? And I know, we're going to know right now in certain industries, it's a little bit tight. And so what I would encourage
Yes.
people to do is to go in and say, you know what? Thinking outside the box over here. What about if we went after this product or that product? Or how can I make a contribution that's going to help the bottom line expand even more? I think you immediately get your boss's attention when you go in and
Yes.
think of things that way. So I think what I'm trying to say here is it's got to be a two-way street.
Yes.
It's all about me and what's good for me. It's about what can you contribute to your superior or your leadership or your manager that might help him de-stress some too. I think people that do that,
That's right.
I've heard from my CEOs and VPs that I work with, they're all ears and they want people like that. So I think it all boils down to communication.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Marianne. And I would just add to your point, in every position, at every job, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. That's just the way life is. And being able to have the ability to speak with your leadership and to express ideas or express maybe new ways of doing things that could make the process better, that is a sign of a good workplace culture. Having those open lines and where you can always in a respectful manner and always in a way that reflects well on yourself. Anytime you can go and visit with your leadership and tell them, hey, I'm struggling in this area, or I could really use help, or I'm not doing great. And if that's welcomed, that is actually the sign of a great workplace culture. And you yourself feel like you're valued and you are heard when that door remains open. So I don't by no means want to make it sound like there aren't going to be hard days in
No,
a good
no,
work
no, I know. I agree. I
in a
agree.
good work in a good
No,
work
no, there
environment.
are. That's
But
right.
having that ability to, like you said, what can we do to make things better? How can we improve in these areas? Can I get some help here? I think those are wonderful things that contribute to a very healthy environment.
I mean, I have to say, I've always enjoyed placing graduates of Baylor because they seem to come out of that school with a really, really good work ethic and obviously a very good education. Also, I think they're so lucky to have you at their Graduate Career Management Center because at your young age, okay, you were elected as the youngest mayor of your hometown in Woodway, Texas. I mean, that just speaks volumes to me. I'm all about lessons. I
Thank
just
you.
wrote another book about lessons. So tell us so our listeners can learn here. How did you aspire and get to a place of that kind of responsibility and to have that tremendous leadership role? That's amazing. Can you share
Well,
that with our listeners?
thank you, Marianne. Yes, happy to share, and I really appreciate the kind words. I think any leader worth his or her salt would tell you that it comes down to serving those who follow you and serving those who are looking to you. And for me, this was my opportunity to serve my community. And through just some amazing opportunities and community service here in my hometown of Woodway, I kind of climbed through the ranks, if you will, and after 10 years was elected to mayor. And what I would tell anybody is if you have a heart for leadership, if you love people, if you want to serve others, then you got to get comfortable with being the lead servant and serving as many people as you can. And you will lead people well if you have that heart of service. So I'm just very blessed and very honored to be in this role. And it really boils down to just having a heart for others, a heart for people, and a heart for serving.
Well, I think that's great advice, and I couldn't agree with you more. And, I mean, we're getting near the end of the podcast, and I always like to leave the listeners with two salient points to take with them. And
Mhm.
if I asked you, if a student came to you and said, I'm just really unsure about what I want to do going forward. I'm not sure I'm in the right curriculum, and I'm not really sure what I want to do going forward. What would you tell that student?
Yeah, a conversation that I have very often, actually, and very common. And the first thing I would say to that student is it's okay. Don't let it get you down. Don't let it discourage you. You will find your way. And I would say practically, I like to encourage them to keep their mind open, keep their funnel open to what they may want to do in their career. The truth is, the wider our funnel is at the beginning, as we're exploring different opportunities and different career paths, we may discover something that we never thought we would enjoy doing. I'm a career coach. I never thought I would enjoy career coaching as much as I did, but I had a wide funnel and I explored that opportunity. Same with being mayor. I never thought I would be mayor one day, but that opportunity came, and it was because I was open-minded and I was open to the idea of exploring different avenues. And as you progress through your college career and as you get closer to graduation, organically that funnel is going to narrow as you go about and you discover, hey, I really enjoy marketing, or hey, I really enjoy engineering. I don't like chemistry, or I don't enjoy working with my hands, or whatever it may be. I prefer being with people, or I prefer being behind the scenes. That is organically going to narrow down. And what ends up happening, Marianne, is that as the time gets closer and as the funnel gets smaller and smaller, students find that they know they have a pretty good idea of what career path they want to get into. That's not to say it won't change after they get into that role and after they have had a few jobs, they may want to try something else, and that's okay too. But the main thing I would tell them is to keep an open mind. Don't be so close-minded that you want to only do one thing. The reason for that is because you're going to get discouraged or you may get disappointed if that one thing doesn't work out. So keep that funnel open. It'll organically work out as you go along and as you try new things. And eventually, the key to a successful career is just to be open and willing to say yes to the next thing and just trusting that you're going to find your way. And
Yeah.
that's what I would tell to anybody who is in that situation.
Well, I think that's a great point. I think the second point is to, and agree, tell me if you agree, is that it's the people we meet along the way. And I think the networking
Yes.
opportunities we have when we're with an institution like Baylor, the students there, the professors there, the counselors, obviously, we have a fabulous demonstration of one here. I think the people you meet along the way in an environment like this, in an institution like this, are invaluable.
I couldn't agree more. And you couldn't have said it better, Marianne, because the people that we meet along the way, you never know where a chance connection could lead to. You and I met at the conference, and here we are 2 weeks later doing a podcast together, which I think is amazing. Small little things like that. The person you meet at the baggage claim, or the person that you just help get an Uber at a conference, you never know where those are going to turn out. So what I tell everybody who is looking to advancing their career is make a friend everywhere you go. Just make a friend. If that comes difficult to you, if you're not somebody who naturally gravitates toward making new friends, I want to challenge you. Get good at it, because it is an amazing skill to have. And you would be amazed at how that one connection could turn into a lifetime of career success. And no matter where you are, make a friend, make that connection, stay connected, be authentic, and that will open the door potentially to just a wonderful career. So couldn't agree more.
Well, I think that's great, great advice. And I think this podcast has been amazing. And I'm so thrilled you took the time to be on Career Can Do. So, I mean, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, maybe they're thinking about going to college or making a change to a different college, is there a website, or how did I get a hold of you if they need some guidance?
Well, I'd love to connect on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably the best way to get a hold of me. My last name is spelled Qourzal, and my first name is Amine. And would love to connect on LinkedIn. We'd love to see how I could be of assistance to anybody who's maybe facing some of these struggles, or maybe wanting to get a little bit more insight into furthering their career. Love to connect on LinkedIn. That's probably the best way. Feel free to send me a message, or in the note, just say you heard the Career Can Do podcast and are looking to connect. And I'm more than happy to do that, because like Marianne said, life is about the relationships, careers are about relationships, and it all boils down to that. So happy to connect and continue this conversation with anybody who's interested.
That's wonderful. Well, all this information will also be on my website, fairmouth.com. And we're about at the end here. I mean, thank you so much for coming on to Career Can Do. I know you and I will stay in touch. If any of you want to get a hold of Amine, again, it's on my website. So we thank you for listening. We're on all major podcast channels. You can download us for free. And we'll see you all next time. Bye-bye. Thanks, Amine.
Bye. Thank you so much, Marianne.
We thank you for tuning in to our Career Can Do podcast. We make no guarantees on results for your particular quest, but we hope you enjoy the information presented. The views and opinions expressed in this program are solely that of the guest or speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of Marianne Fairmouth and Fairmouth and Company. Thank you.